Algebra 2, lesson 9-6, solving rational expressions. Okay. Alright, solving rational expressions. First of all, you know you're solving when there's an equal sign in the problem. Okay? So, basically you have one fraction equal to another fraction. For example, before in the past when you would have something like 5 over, let's say 12 is equal to x over, let's say 20. Alright, remember you would cross multiply. Alright, you would cross multiply this, cross multiply this. Right, so basically you're doing the same thing here. So anytime you have a fraction equal to another fraction, you're just gonna cross multiply. Okay, and then depending on what kind of numbers you have, after that, the approach might be a little bit different to solve. So cross multiply there, so we're taking 5 times x squared minus 1, and then we've got 15 times 2x minus 2 is equal to 15 times 2x minus 2. So we'll distribute here. So we're going to end up with 5x squared minus 5 is equal to, distribute over here, 30x minus 30. Now here's where you have to kind of think a little bit. If you take a look at the problem and you notice the x squared here, right? You notice there's an x squared in your problem and it's not going to cancel, alright? And it's not going to cancel itself out with like another x squared on the other side, right? So basically you're going to be left with an x squared, right? It's basically you're solving a trinomial type problem. So what you need to do is, remember you need to set the problem equal to 0 like we did back in chapter 5 when you first learned how to do this. So we're going to make this problem equal 0. So what I would do is I would always keep, if the x squared is positive, I would keep it where it is, and I would bring everything else to the same side. So I want to keep this over here since the x squared here, this 5 is positive. So I'm going to keep all this stuff here. I'm going to get rid of this, alright, and bring it over here. So I'm going to minus 30x, add 30, because what that does is minus 30x, add 30. That'll set the problem equal to 0 for you. Alright, so the problem equals 0. And then we get 5x squared minus 30x. And then simplify here, plus 25. Alright, so basically you're just solving a trinomial like you did in, like when you first learned in chapter 5. So when you're solving, let's take out the GCF right here. So we'll take out the 5 x squared minus 6x plus 5 is equal to 0. You're going to factor this right here. Right? So basically that's going to give you, I'll move it over here, 5 x minus 5 x minus 1 is equal to 0. And then, there's no x out here, right? Then all you have to do is take each one of these factors, alright, x minus 5, set it equal to 0, so x is going to equal 5. Then over here, we have x minus 1, set it equal to 0, so x is going to equal 1. Right? So those are your solutions right there. You don't need to worry about the 5 here, because there's no x, right? So if there's an x here, x equals 0 would have to be one of your solutions. So your solutions are x equals 5 and x equals 1. Now what you need to be careful about is you have to take a look at the original problem. Right? If you plug in your solutions, make sure it doesn't result in 0 in the denominator. For example, if you plug in 5 here, 25, 5 squared is 25 minus 1, alright, that doesn't make 0. You plug 5 right here, 10 minus 2, alright, that doesn't make 0. But if you take the 1 and you plug it in right here, 1 squared is 1 minus 1, and then you get 0. Remember, you can't have 0 in the denominator, so the x minus 1 here cannot be a solution. Alright, so your only answer that you can use is x is equal to 5. Okay, that's what it is. So always make sure you check your solutions so that any solutions that result in 0 in the denominator cannot be considered, or cannot be a solution. Okay. Now, what is the problem? What if it's not one fraction equal to another fraction? For example, here, right? You can't just cross multiply because you have more than one fraction on this side. So when you have more than one fraction on either side or both sides, what you need to do is first find the LCM, like how we did in the previous section. So there's nothing to factor out here, so that's nice. So take a look at the numbers 2, 5, and 2. So it looks like the LCM would be 10. And then let's say we have an x, right? So it's got to have an x. So your LCM is 10x. So what you're going to do now is, once you've found the LCM, you're going to multiply each one of these fractions, alright? Each one of these fractions, each one of these terms, by whatever the LCM is. So you're going to multiply this by 10x. You're going to multiply this by 10x. You're going to multiply this by 10x. Alright? So whatever the LCM is, that's what you're going to multiply everything by. The reason why you do that is because it should, if you're doing it correctly, it should get rid of all your denominators. So the 2 and the 10 reduce, right? That'll make this a 5. Then the x's will cancel each other. So 5 times 1 is 5. The 2 and the 5 and the 10 reduce. That'll make this a 2. And then the x's cancel each other. So 2 times 2 is 4, so we get minus 4. 2 and 10 reduce is 5. So 1 times 5x is 5x. So 5 minus 4 is 1. So you get 5x. You notice here this is not an x squared, so you don't make the problem equal 0 or anything like that. Go and just solve it like you normally would. Get x by itself. So x is equal to 1 over 5. Right. Then you always want to check, alright, with any solving type problem. If you plug in 1 over 5 here, are you going to get 0 on the bottom here? Right. You plug in 1 over 5 here, 5 times 1 over 5. These cancel and you end up with 1, so that's not 0, so you're okay. Okay? So you always want to check your answer. Right? Let's do another example, this one on the bottom right here. Move it up so we get some space. Alright. So this one, we're going to do this example right here, so we need to find the LCM. Alright, there's nothing to factor out. So this our LCM is going to be x, alright, because this is one term. And then another term is x plus 1. Right, these are two different terms. This is an x. This is an x plus 1. Our LCM, remember, has to have one of each term. Okay. So basically, we're going to multiply everything by an x times an x plus 1. Turn it up a little bit. X times an x plus 1. Multiply this by an x plus 1. Multiply this by an x and an x plus 1. Now the reason why we do that is it should get rid of our denominators. The x's, this x cancels with this x, so you're just left with this. Distribute the 4. 4x plus 4. Over here the x plus 1 cancels with this x plus 1. You're just left with the x. So that'll be minus 3x is equal to 1 times x is x. X times x plus 1, distribute x squared plus x. Now you notice in this problem we have an x squared that's going to be left over. So it's one of those problems where you need to set the problem equal to 0. So remember, since it's on this side and it's positive, I will leave it here. You have the 4x and the 3x here. So basically this will become 4 plus x after you simplify these two. So then that's minus 4 minus x. Minus a 4 and minus an x. So that gives us 0. We have the x squared. These cancel. Negative 4. Basically this difference of squares, x plus 2, x minus 2 is equal to 0. So take these, set them equal to 0. X plus 2. Alright, so x is going to equal negative 2. X minus 2, set it equal to 0. So x is going to equal 2. Alright, or you could use the square roots method that you learned in chapter 5, add 4, square root both sides. That works too. Okay? And then you always want to, double check your answers. So over here, our answer is negative 2 and 2. If you plug in negative 2 and 2 here, it's never going to result in 0. So each one of these is okay as an answer. Alright?